So, it was a Saturday night, and I, of course, was home alone. To preface, in front of the sink there's a window that gives you a decent view of the backyard. I wasn't really paying attention at this point, just finishing up rinsing off my fork before jolting. I'm not sure why exactly, but I felt my joints and muscles, I don't know how to describe it, lock up, stiffen. In either case, I just couldn't move. Then, there it was, a set of tapping at the window. Keep in mind, I was staring at my fork, and just my fork. The thought of looking away didn't occur to me until I heard my mom's voice from the other side.
"Hey, Lily Flower."
For context, Lily Flower is just a nickname only my mom has ever called me, which is what unsettled me. I knew for a fact no one else was home. There was more tapping.
"Hey, Lily Flower. I think there's someone in the shed. Come look. Lily Flower, come outside, please. I'm scared. Lily, come outside for me, please. Lily, get out here now."
I can't remember what it said after that. I just snapped and ran to my room. I didn't tell anyone about this, and honestly, I don't plan to. Knowing my family, it'll just become a joke to them to tease me with. I just needed to put this out there. Not sure if this is some sort of sign of mental illness, or whatever. I recently came across this sub, and oh boy, do I have a story that fits. For context, this happened 20 years ago, just after Christmas. I had turned 6 a month prior. My cousin decided to take us out to the city, which was 10 minutes from where we lived. We took the bus, walked around the city in an incredibly unsafe neighborhood, with basically another child responsible for us, and after a few hours, got tired and decided to go home. The city had a central area for buses, not a bus station, but like a huge, perfectly square field with some plants and flowers and bushes. Lining all 4 sides along the streets were a couple bus stops and benches, so basically, you could catch several different buses from that area, going all over the county and city. Since it was just after Christmas, the bushes along the field were still covered in Christmas lights. As we waited for the bus, I began to wander away as I admired the lights, my cousin none the wiser. At some point, I heard a man say, "Hi." I looked up from the bush and he was smiling down at me. Thinking back on it once I got older, it was clear to me that he was homeless and probably on drugs. He had longish brown hair that was wet, teeth that were black along the gums, and his clothes were incredibly dirty and torn, and he had several jackets on. None of this really registered in my 6-year-old brain, so I just smiled back up at him and said, "Hi." He asked if I liked looking at the lights, and I said yes, they're pretty. He said, and I'll never forget this exact sentence,
"If you like Christmas lights, I've got some really cool lights in my house you'll love. Wanna come see them?"
I eagerly said yes, so he reached down his hand to me, and I took it. We started to walk away, and were headed to the corner of the field where a few big buildings were. He said his apartment was just a couple blocks away, so we were headed around the corner of the building. when my arm jerked backwards and I turned to see my sister pulling me away from him. He didn't say a single word, just took off instantly running. It took a few years for me to fully grasp the danger I was in. My sister and brother talked about what happened a lot and how scary it was. When I finally got a little older, I appreciated how terrifying all that was and how close I was to having my life change or end forever. If I had rounded that city corner with him, they never would have been able to find me in time because they wouldn't have even known where to start looking before we disappeared around the corner and into the city. It's something we still bring up sometimes to this day. To that homeless man, let's not meet again. A few weeks ago, me, 23-year-old female, and a friend, 24-year-old female, planned to go to an event together. Since we only had free time after work, we decided to get an Uber so it wouldn't take too long to arrive, and we could enjoy it more. The first half of the ride was really normal, seemed like a normal, polite dude, but as soon as we got to the highway, his attitude changed. He seemed a lot more irritated. Me and my friend didn't pay much attention, though, and kept chatting between us. Our attention was drawn when he started shouting with another driver. He turned to us and said he was going to pull over. I tried objecting, but he ignored me and pulled over anyway. He reached out for the glove compartment and pulled a gun. Important to note that guns are illegal in my country. We were just watching this unfold with held breaths, and when the other guy drove away, we let out a sigh of relief. But then, we were still stuck in a car with a crazy man with a gun. After that, he went back to driving and apologized to us, saying that the guy was tailgating him. I let out an, "Oh, got it." He kept talking.
That guy is lucky you two girls were here, or else I would have followed him and shot him right in the face. Sleazy idiot.
I look over to my friend. She's in shock and paralyzed. I'm in shock too, but trying to keep my cool, because the last thing I want to do is get him annoyed at us. If he was willing to shoot that guy for tailgating, I didn't want to know what he would do to us if I said the wrong thing. "No, it's okay. I understand," I say, trying to appease him.
These guys need to be taught a lesson.
He continued while I just agreed with my head.
I did that before, you know. You just trap the guy in an empty street, and when he leaves his car, bang!
Did he just admit to murder? Was the only thing running through my mind, but I managed to keep calm and just agreed with him for the rest of the way. He did deliver us to the right place with no more incidents. I waited a few weeks to report, since he had my home address and wouldn't be too hard to figure out who reported him. Nobody showed up to my house with a gun, at least until now, and Uber has answered my report saying that they'd started an investigation. I hope this guy doesn't do this to anyone else. I live in a medium-sized apartment building in a fairly major city. While the neighborhood I live in is more on the safe side, gun violence is very high in my city as a whole, and we have a big trafficking problem. Despite this, I feel pretty safe going out, especially close to my apartment building, where it is mostly well lit, and I'm friendly with a few of the regular homeless people. Last night, I got a reminder that my safety isn't guaranteed, and I've been pretty shaken since. Last night at around 12:20 a.m., I asked my partner if he wanted to share a joint with me, and when he declined, I locked the apartment and went downstairs myself. The exit I take spits me out on a main street where there is an occasional car driving by at this time. Usually, this type of human presence comforts me walking late at night, but tonight, a lone black/dark blue van approached in my peripheral and started to drive slowly, matching my walking pace until I rounded the corner and the van was stopped by a stoplight. I found it very strange at the time, but the van was on the other side of the street and there were 1 to 2 other cars, so I brushed it off. Around the corner, there is a little food truck area with a bunch of picnic tables. They have like Christmas string lights hung up and a few other ambient lights that are kept on the whole night, but it barely illuminates the area. As I'm walking past the picnic tables, I notice a large man dressed in dark clothing, sitting alone at one of the back tables. He was wearing a hood or a hat, so I couldn't see his whole face, but his eyes followed me as I walked the border of the picnic area. My usual smoke spot is behind a fence on the other side of the picnic area. I was a little shaken by spotting that man, and also, I didn't want to upset him by smoking near him, so I chose a slightly further spot against the side of a construction vehicle. I lit my joint and started puffing away and reading something on my phone. I soon start getting this really uneasy sensation. It felt like all my hairs were standing up, and I got the most intense goosebumps I've ever felt. My phone was still playing music, and I turned it off, and as I turned it off, I heard the shifting and rustling of gravel on the ground behind me. I swung my head around and saw a man reaching towards me with huge hands. I caught only a glimpse of his face before I fell to the ground. His eyes were wide, bulging, and extremely dark. They terrified me. My mouth was agape, and he was basically snarling at me. He scared me so bad I fell to the ground, stumbled, and broke into a run, all in like 1 second. I ran for a few seconds before I peeked behind my shoulder and saw him a couple yards behind me. At this point, I saw it was definitely the man who was sitting at the picnic table, and now I saw that he was wearing what looked like a dirty bucket hat. He had shoulder-length, dirty light-colored hair and was way taller than me, so at least 6 foot. He was definitely gaining on me, as I had lost ground by turning around, and I am not in the best shape to begin with. I was about to reach the first entrance to the building, but the issue was, 1, there were double doors at the entrance that closed quite slowly, and 2, the only way up was an elevator, so if he got inside with me, I was SOL. I kept running, taking my chances with my running ability versus quickly opening doors ability. I kept running along the other side of the building to get to the second entrance to the building. This one is just 2 single doors which open to the stairwell up to my apartment. It's above the 2nd floor. That's all I'll say because I'm still scared. As I'm nearing this entrance, I see another man who appears to be speedwalking directly towards me from the opposite direction. I should note that throughout this, I have been hearing the growling, snarling of the first guy behind me, and as the second man gets closer, I hear he is also growling. I reach the keypad, unlock the first door, and quickly slam it closed behind me until I hear it lock and click again. The second man reaches the door first, and I saw his face more clearly as it slammed against the glass window of the door. He was also tall with longer hair, and I remember he was wearing overalls, but I mostly remember his wild eyes and his teeth that gnashed at me right before I turned away, opened the second door, and booked it up the stairs. I didn't even stop until I was in my apartment, had all the doors locked, and was under the covers. I think in retrospect, I didn't hear any of the signs of them following me up the stairs, but I was so convinced that they were on my tail. I think the only reason I got away from them was that they didn't know about the side entrance to my building, so they didn't expect me to keep running past the first entrance. I got up to get my inhaler. I was having a near asthma attack at this point, and peeked out of the window. My heart sank. I saw the same van that had creeped me out earlier parked across the street from the entrance to my building. The entrance is like right below my apartment window. I then looked down to see 3 men pacing along the side of the building, including the 2 that had chased me. I ducked down, fearing that they would see me. A few minutes later, they start shining flashlights into the windows of the apartments. At first, I think of course it's only my apartment, but after a while, it's clear that they're just searching for me. At this point, I try to call my building manager to let him know about the situation, and he sent out a text alert to all of our building list. I was so paranoid another innocent person would be accosted by them, so I called the police. They told me they were on their way and to stay out of the window in case they were armed. A few minutes later, the men were spooked by a faraway police siren and got in the van and peeled away. I think it was a different 911 call because when the officers arrived to our building, the sirens weren't on. I spent a long sleepless night thinking they'd come back, but never did. Definitely going to be avoiding being alone at night from now on. I asked one of the homeless guys I am friendly with if he saw anything suspicious last night, but he said that he hadn't. They couldn't have been residents because they didn't leave after management had sent that alert to us. The part that sticks with me the most is the growling and intense look in both of their eyes. I don't know if they were on drugs or what. They never said any words to me or each other. Haven't heard any updates from the cops, but it's only been a few hours, and they didn't seem that interested in my statement, as the van had disappeared when they left. To the 2 men who growled at me and chased me into my apartment, let's not meet again.